Hello and welcome to a new edition of True Audio Files, where today we're going to cover Nirvana's Nevermind. And I've been looking to do this for quite some time, but I had found out around the time that I decided I wanted to do this Shootout video that there was a new version coming out. So I decided I'd hold off until that new version came out. And here we are today. So we're going to cover Nirvana's Nevermind. And I only have 3 copies, but 2 of them are considered 2 of the better sounding versions out there. Unfortunately, I don't have an original pressing, which I sort of shoot myself. Hindsight's always 20/20, but I was actually working at a record store at the time Nirvana came out, or I'm sorry, Nirvana's Nevermind came out. I was able to scoop up a first pressing, for lack of a better term, of the CD, which was missing that endless. I can't remember what it's called. Actually, I'll know what it is. It's I don't remember. Endless, whatever it was. That song that basically comes after a long pause after something in the way, and basically the original pressing of the CD didn't have that bonus track after the long space and gap after the last song. And when I was working at the record store, there was someone that decided they wanted to return that and get the version that had that gap and bonus track. So I then turned around and bought that version of it. I haven't checked recently on Discogs to see if it's really worth much of anything, but it's a nice little collector's piece. So then I have that. I also have a mobile advertisement marketing piece that I will post, well, not up there, probably up here for you, and I'll take a picture of that. That's in my listening room. It's a little beat up, but it's in good enough shape to where it's acceptable, and so I've got that also, and I also have these 3 records that I have, plus the Super Deluxe Edition and the remasters that came out a while ago that were controversial that Bob Ludwig did. Regardless of that, these are the versions that I have that I will show you here. And so we'll start off with this one, which this is the ORG Bernie Grundman cut. Basically, the stampers for this have been used for the last, I think, 10 years or so. But analog cut, this is actually, I believe, the second pressing on the ORG label that was done for this release. So that's this one is more valuable because of that, even though it's basically the same stampers. The next one up is probably the second most valuable version. I'm not sure, though. But it's the Mobile Fidelity version. I bought this, this is probably one of the albums I spent the most money on when I was out record shopping. I bought this at Amoeba in LA a couple years back. It's actually pretty awesome because it's number 220. So that was probably part of the other reason why it was priced the way it was, but it also I also paid a lot less than what it's going for now. So that's kind of the good news about that one. And then last is the 30th anniversary edition, which basically is a new remaster. It's the only one of the 3 that is digitally sourced. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's actually in a really, really nice gatefold, super thick stock. It comes with well, actually I should probably pull this out. I didn't open the actual gatefold because I left the shrink wrap on, but you can sort of see it's got that thick stock cardboard, and then it's got the single, which I'm having a hard time getting out. There we go. So basically has this, which is in, I think, every version of the album for the most part, and then Endless Nameless is the song that was at the end of the the CD that had the long gap between Something in the Way and then Long Gap and Endless Nameless. But this is a single that also has Even in His Youth and Aneurysm, which are a couple of other kind of bonus tracks that came out around the same time. All of this was cut by Ryan Smith at Sterling, so all of these have been cut by highly regarded mastering engineers, or lacquer cutters, if you will, for lack of a better term. Um, the Analog Productions is not the one I was thinking of. The Mobile Fidelity is actually probably the heaviest weight. I think it's a 200 gram, where I think the other two are 180 gram. So the ORG, I believe, was pressed at Palace. The Mobile Fidelity was RTI, and this one was done at GZ Vinyl. So that might give you some indication of where we might go with the new reissue. So the first thing I do on almost all shootouts is, if it's a new version that I'm listening to, I listen to the whole thing first of the new version, and then I kind of, while I'm doing that, I kind of determine, maybe 2, 3, or 4 songs that I want to check out in a straight A/B comparison. And in this case, I did Breed, I did Territorial Pissings, and Drain You. I thought that those did the best job because of some stereo effects that were happening in the recording and some of the sounds that were happening in those. So those were the 3 primary songs that I A-B'd back and forth and back and forth. I do it usually pretty extensively, especially if I notice something on one pressing. I'll go back to the other 2 in this case and check that out. So first, listen to the new 30th anniversary. I thought it sounded pretty decent. It had pretty wide soundstage. It did seem a little flat in the sense that it didn't have. It definitely had a somewhat deep soundstage, but it definitely had that kind of 2D sound field, if you will, where there's not much of a space between instruments. Is the best way for me to sort of describe that. But I thought the EQ was pretty decent. I thought the high end was a little bit on the bright side, but not bad. The bass was decent, and overall, I thought that the remaster was actually done pretty well. So then I just determined to listen to all the 3, and my take is this, is, with the Mobile Fidelity one, I feel, maybe that it could have benefited from a little bit more treble and bass, actually. I think it's probably the most neutral of the 3 pressings that I have in terms of bass and treble. Where, like the Bernie Grundman one, I think the Bernie Grundman one, the drums probably sound the best on that one. Unfortunately, I think the cymbals sound the worst on that one because it had more treble than the other 2. And the vocals also had an issue where on this copy, it's very possible that it's my cartridge, because I will preface this by saying that my cartridge is getting a little long in the tooth. It probably needs to be replaced soon. But that being said, the Bernie cut, there was definitely a little bit of sibilance in some of the voice, in some of the vocals. And I didn't get that with the Mobile Fidelity, and I only think I got it maybe a little bit at the very end of the 30th anniversary edition. But I rarely get sibilance. I do get it, but it's not very often. And I got it on the Bernie Grundman copy. So I think, like I said, the Bernie Grundman copy, the drums definitely, the drums sounded the best on the Bernie Grundman copy. I think the cymbals sounded the best on the Mobile Fidelity, and maybe even the vocals to a certain extent, although, I might actually even give the vocals a little bit of a edge on the 30th anniversary edition, believe it or not. I think maybe the 30th anniversary edition sort of kind of falls in between the Mobile Fidelity and the ORG from an EQ standpoint. I think it's got, a little bit more bass and a little bit more treble than the Mobile Fidelity, but not quite as much of those as the Bernie Grundman copy. So that's kind of where that one falls. I think from an EQ standpoint, I would probably even give a slight edge to the 30th anniversary edition if you're talking about purely based on EQ. Like I said, I like the cymbals quite a bit better on the Mobile Fidelity. There's also like a squeak noise that I can't recall on, what was it? I think it was on Drain U, that definitely sounds a lot more realistic, as do the cymbals. I think sound a lot more realistic on the Mobile Fidelity. So what does that mean for everything? Well, bottom line is, I don't think there's necessarily a clear-cut winner. I think a lot of it's going to be really, really dependent on what you're looking for, what you're listening for. I will say, from a pressing standpoint, the Mobile Fidelity ekes out the win just a little bit over the Palace pressed ORG copy, and then obviously, maybe not obviously, but obviously to me, if you know where it's pressed, the 30th anniversary edition definitely is the noisiest of the bunch. However, I will have to say it's one of the better GZ vinyl pressings that I've heard in a while. It still had a little bit of a whooshing sound and a little bit of noise to it, but it was definitely better than most of the other ORGs that I've heard recently. So I have to give it credit on that sense. But overall, this is kind of how I go. If you're looking for a great sound stage, good 3D, and you really want the punchy drum sound, you definitely want the ORG. If you're wanting the more natural sound, more neutral sound to it, and still want that sound stage and a very quiet pressing, I would say the Mobile Fidelity one is the clear winner in those respects. I think from an overall balance and EQ, not saying that it's the most neutral, but it's probably the most balanced, or it's kind of falls in between the other two, where you kind of get that EQ punch that you got on the Bernie Grundman cut on the new version, but then you lose the kind of the 3D aspect of it, or the kind of the better sound stage to it. Not sure why that is. Maybe it's a little bit more compressed. I don't know. I didn't really pick up on anything too drastic in terms of compression, but maybe it was a little bit more compressed. I would even maybe argue and say that the Bernie Grundman probably was a little bit more compressed than the Mobile Fidelity. So maybe as it went down the line, I think that's part of the reason why you got that punch in the drums, because that's one of the advantages that you get when you compress a master some. Not ridiculously like some of the new stuff out there, but you get that right level of compression and the drums just pop off of the recording. So and that's probably where we're at with the Bernie Grundman one. The drums definitely popped a little bit more, especially the bass drum. But all in all, I have to say they're all three really good. The new one, I would say, is probably third, but not far off, just because I think the EQ is so good on it. And it's actually probably got the best packaging, although the Mobile Fidelity one's close. It's got the best packaging. It's got the Endless Nameless and the other two bonus tracks on a 7-inch single, which is great because none of the records that I'm aware of, none of the ones I have, and I don't know of any of the records that actually have that Endless Nameless track on it that the CD version has or the digital versions have. So that's an extra bonus too. Although unfortunately, good luck getting it because it's very hard to come by from what I hear. Although I hear the mom and pop shops, indie stores complaining a lot, but it looks like places like Amazon and Target and maybe even Walmart had a sufficient supply, at least as of yesterday. But it looked like a lot of the mom and pop indie stores kind of got shut out a little bit, which is sad because for those of you that don't know, there was for some reason they were marketing the heck out of this album, this release, and then all of a sudden they kind of switched it out like a week or two later ago, saying that it was going to be a super limited run, and a lot of the indie record stores kind of got their orders allocated drastically. In the case of someone like the Ingroove, he had made mention on a video that I think he had ordered 500 of them, and I think he's got a total of like 10 or 12 of them. So anyway, so this is going to be a relatively short run. I don't know, if you've already got the Palace or the Mofi or the original, basically anything that's been released over the past like 10 years is basically the same as that Bernie Grundman ORG copy that I have from a sound quality aspect, pressed at Palace, I believe, as well. So I think you're going to be happy with that one, because that one's definitely, I can definitely see why a lot of people think that that's one of the best, if not the best one out there, except for maybe the original, but I haven't heard the original. I personally probably say, just because of the pressing, the Mofi gets a slight edge to me. So, anyways, all three are awesome. You know, I'd say Mofi, very, very, very close second, the ORG, and then the limited edition 30th anniversary is a third. I wouldn't say it's distant, because there are definitely some pluses to it, but it's third in this particular case. So that's my opinion on this. I would love to hear your opinion. Do you have all three of these? Do you have an original that you've been able to do straight A/B comparisons to, and got a feel for what you like the best? I'd love to hear your take on that. If you liked what you see here, please hit that like button. Please subscribe to my channel. I'm getting really close to 1,000 subscribers, so that's cool. And also hit that alert bell to let you know when my new videos come out. And I also have the social media stuff down below, so in the description you'll see links to my social media pages, where I'm trying to do a little bit more and more on that, and I'd love to get some two-way conversations going with all you guys out there on my social media pages like Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. So that's everything I've got for today. Thank you very much. You have a great week.